Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I'm Ron.
And we're here to talk about Angel. No, not the cool WB show. Starring Cliff Gorman, Susan Tyrrell, Dick Shawn, John Deal, Rory Calhoun, and Donna Wilkes. Written by Robert Vincent O'Neill and Joseph M. Calla. Directed by Robert Vincent O'Neill. Released in January 1984 and was successful enough to spawn two sequels, Avenging Angel and Angel 3, the final chapter, from our friends at New World Pictures. So, Ron, while Lindsay's off tap dancing and singing in the SpongeBob musical that she's doing, we decided to break open the sleaze vault and go with Angel. So, what's your background with Angel and the Angel movies?
Yeah, Jay, we scraped the layer of grime off the top of the film canister and went to work. I remember this video box really well, but I never rented the movie.
Yeah.
It was one of the ones I would always see when I worked at the video store. There were always certain ones that caught your eye, right? And Angel was one of the ones that always caught your eye because it's a very dramatic cover. It's got, Angel the schoolgirl on one side and Angel the gun-toting prostitute on the other side. Well, Molly the schoolgirl, but you don't know that because the movie's called Angel. It's not called Molly.
Right.
Molly doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The Molly persona, anyway. I finally got around to watching it when Joe Bob Briggs did it on an episode of The Last Drive-In, and I had a great time with it. It's that kind of weird drive-in sleaze, and I believe it was paired with Freeway, which is another
that would work.
Super duper grimy teen prostitute. People get shot, scummy shit happens kind of movie. So,
yes.
Yeah, I saw it and I had a really good time with it. What about you, Jay? What is your background with it? I say that knowing your background with it, but it's so funny. It's got to come out. So,
all right,
Jay.
so you got to tell the whole story here, though, because when your wife, who we've established has known me for a long time, found out we were doing this, what did she ask you?
Okay, so I told my wife what we were doing and gave her a quick rundown of what the movie was about. She was like, "This must be a movie you told him about, isn't it?" And I was like, I don't think so. He's been wanting to do it for a while, but I mean, maybe I did at some point and forgot about it.
And then I told you, oh no, Ron, I saw this as a kid because my dad rented it because of the cover on it. He thought it looked cool. He was like, hey, that sounds fun. She's going to shoot a bunch of people. Because the guy at the video store, Hill's video store, told him, hey, don't worry. She's to get naked. There's not any sex in it, which is true about the main character. There is the one nude. But he's like, it's like a serial killer thing, and he knew what I had seen at this point. He's like, he'll dig it. He likes the cop movies or whatever. He's like, okay, cool. And so we watched it, and I just remember being horrified by what the killer does with the knife, not to people, but to that egg. And we'll talk about that when we get into the movie. But yeah, I saw this way too young, and then I got curious years later because I found out there were sequels, and I just found them in the video stores and rented them, only to be like blown away that Avenging Angel, which is the next one in the series, stars help me with her name, stars Mitzi Capture, and then, well, the next one stars Betsy Russell, who would later be in the Saw series, and among other things and stuff.
Yeah, and the third one I think is the one with Mitzi Capture.
That's the third one with Mitzi Capture, who would go on to be on Silk Stockings, which felt like casting on the nose, so, so in a lot of ways. But I don't remember anything about those other two. I just remember this one, and I saw it as a kid, didn't think anything else about it for years. Watched it when I watched those other three. I was probably in college when I did that. And then, ever since Tubi has been in my life, this is just sort of on the rotation of things because they have it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I need to rewatch that at some point. And I thought, well, I don't want to do it until we do it on the show because it's film strip gold. I mean, we're sitting there picking on Lindsay like she would have been above doing this. She's probably pissed that she wasn't on the show because this is her kind of trash. But I just remember thinking like this movie is so cheesy and so trashy, but it plays in this like it's a good match with the TV movie we did, this Justice for Annie, because it's got the same kind of over sentimentality to it, especially with the
Hmm.
score and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So I felt like, oh, this, I mean, because that was it was sort of based off of a story that this guy heard or read about all these runaway teenagers that wound up in Hollywood that were like basically just being hookers at night to take care of themselves because there was no one to take care of them. And the original story was a girl's dad, disappears on her, and she goes to doing this on Hollywood Boulevard, and she's stalked by a killer Santa who dun, 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 turns out to be her dad, which I kind of want that one, but that would have been
Yeah.
a great excuse to have Tiz the podcast on for.
Well, isn't that just don't open till Xmas?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been done 100 times. I mean, like we talk about the hooker with a gun is a trope of the '80s for sure.
So we may at some point have to do those sequels, Jay, because I saw that Ozzie Davis is in Avenging Angel.
Hmm.
That's very exciting news for me. And
Yeah,
then I also saw that in Angel 3, it's loaded with like that person
yeah,
people. Because like Maud Adams, former Bond girl, is in it. Richard Roundtree is in it.
yep.
Um,
Th-
Dick Miller, Tony Basil, Julie K. Smith.
I'll tell you, the second and the third one are way more like action movies than they are what this one is, which is a drama horror movie almost in some
Yeah,
way.
this reminds me a lot, Jay, of when we were doing the Dirty Harry movies. This kind of feels like a
Yes.
Dirty Harry movie if Dirty Harry was playing second fiddle to a child with a hand cannon.
Yeah, it lives in the same ugly world that Sudden Impact comes from that we talked about, years ago. But yeah, you're not wrong. It definitely feels like that. And but the other ones are like I say much more like they feel more like Golden Globus movies than the two New World movies. At least the way they're shot and the way they come off. But
Well, by this point, Roger Corman has seen the success that Golan and Globus have had. So he's like, well, I could do that. I'll just do
yeah.
the same thing they're doing exactly. And
but
then he does it.
but a lot cheaper, which is the amazing way for the way Roger ran that studio all those years. But yeah, no, let's say this is just one that I've known and have I thought, hey, this will be kind of a fun thing to revisit, and we'll talk about how fun it was to revisit as we get into it. But I think for the uninitiated or those that weren't brave enough to maybe pause this and go watch it, if you're just going to ride with us, Ron, you got to tell people what is the story of Angel.
Jay, it is a story as old as time. Molly Stewart is a shy, retiring, bookwormy kind of girl. She doesn't go in much for like after school activities like the Glee Club or the newspaper. She's not a cheerleader, although she's hanging around with the cheerleaders while they shower for some reason. She's not an athlete. Of course, Molly is a little bit busy after the sun goes down because the sweet little schoolgirl by day is a leather clad, high heeled teenage prostitute named Angel by night. When the sun goes down, she'll go down too, if you know what I mean. And I think you do, if the price is right. Which Bob Barker's not in this movie, but I mean, if anybody would know his way around a teenage prostitute, it would probably be Bob Barker. Um, no, wait, I'm thinking of Johnny Carson. Anyway, Angel isn't out alone on the Hollywood Boulevard streets. She's got a whole family of weirdos and friends. There's fellow sex workers, Crystal and Lana. There's May, the drag queen, who is, I can't tell if May is a drag performer or a sex worker herself, but it doesn't really matter. And there's an aging cowboy stuntman who goes by the name of Kit Carson, who brags constantly about his relationship with none other than the most famous Western star of the 40s or 30s, Tom Mix. They're all each other has on the wild, weird streets of Hollywood. But as it turns out, prostitution isn't a very safe profession. I don't know if you knew that, Jay. And a necrophile serial killer is stalking the streets because it's the 80s, and that was just a thing that happened. The killer is murdering girls in various terrible ways. Maybe he's bisexual. Maybe he's a necrophile. Maybe he's impotent. Maybe he's all of these things, which kind of doesn't make sense. But, the people on the case are the LAPD. And since it's the LAPD, they're not having much luck as this proto Patrick Bateman type stalks the streets with a switchblade, a lust for hookers, and a boner. While Lieutenant Andrews, that's the LAPD guy, investigates, he lays down the law with the girls. Work together, stay in pairs, Don't get into trouble. Don't go off by yourselves. And if you see anything weird, drop the dime. Here's my card. Of course, the other two prostitute friends of Molly slash Angel get caught up by the killer and die. Meanwhile, the cop and a do-gooder teacher start to dig into Molly's backstory, while at the same time, uh, the killer realizes that Molly has seen him. Of course, the story comes out eventually. Molly slash Angel is a sex worker whose mother and father abandoned her at age 12 and never returned. Well, the father abandoned her first, and then the mother abandoned her. Meanwhile, Angel has been working the streets and keeping her private school tuition and apartment rent in LA paid secretly while telling everyone that her mom is an invalid. Angel has seen the killer, and after the worst police lineup incident in history, she's now on his radar, and he's stalking her from afar, readying his blade and shaving his head to blend in with Hare Krishna's and also just to look weirder. Mrs. Allen, that's the nice teacher, meets May. That's the cross-dressing slash trans prostitute question mark. And the two
I
begin.
think street performer is the right way to go with that. I think that person is just doing cosplay.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And the two begin planning how to best save Angel from the streets when the killer shows up to strike. May fights the killer off valiantly, but gets stabbed and dies in the arms of his frenemy, Molly the landlady, who is Susan Tyrrell of many, many movies fame. Angel, seeing her best friend slash father slash mother figure dead, grabs the landlady's giant 44 Magnum ass hand cannon and decides to hit the streets for a little revenge. With Detective Andrews and Kit Carson chasing after her in a vain attempt to protect her. There's a lot of shooting and chasing, with Angel just kind of firing randomly at crowds, and Andrews and the killer also shooting at each other multiple times. Kit Carson runs into him and gets shot, and we think he's going to die, but not quite. It all ends up in a stereotypical alleyway showdown where Andrews and the killer are shooting at each other from basically point blank range, and nobody's hitting anything except for Andrews. He gets hit in the arm, and he goes down, loses his gun. As the killer is going in for the final blow, guess who shows up in the alleyway, backlit and looking cool as hell? It's Rory Calhoun, aka Kit Carson, who proves that his quick draw tricks aren't just tricks, as he pulls his pistols, shoots the serial killer like 18 times, and credits roll.
Good job of summarizing that oddly dense, twisted Lifetime movie that this thing is.
Yeah, that's really an apt description of the thing, because like
Yeah.
there's 100% at least 5 Lifetime movies about schoolgirl prostitutes.
Oh yeah, easily. And I think they all draw something from this, but this one's also got like a whole lot of other shit going on in it that I don't know. We're going to have to get into. Like, I think the first thing is just talking about Angel's double life, and because we get into it, and I'll tell you what the hook for me for this movie was, and what really, my dad thought I would dig about it. He knew how big of a fan I was of the Jaws movies, and particularly Jaws 2. And if you know anything about Jaws 2, there's a cousin that's visiting one of the people in Amity, here forever known as the allegedly hot Jackie. And Jackie was played by Donna Wilkes, and I just knew her face on stuff, but I never saw her in anything else. When I saw her on the poster of the thing, and it's on the description of the episode, if you know what we're talking about, folks. But I saw her, I was like, that's the girl from Jaws 2, which is why my dad asked, like,
Ooh.
hey, is this something that the kid could watch? As if that would have stopped him. But the guy was like, oh yeah, this is totally, she didn't get naked at all. He totally left out the part where like the other hooker does, and like the Porky shower scenes that have no reason to be there at all.
Yeah,
But
there's like 4
yeah,
absolutely pointless shower scenes that
yeah,
happen.
with cheerleaders who don't have names that Molly's not friends with, but I guess they just wanted that in this. I don't know. It's an
Well, I mean,
exploitation movie.
Roger Corman learned from the best,
Yeah.
and you got to sneak some of those in there.
Well, this is Don Borchers is the producer, and he's the one that really is the creative force behind a lot of this. I know
Mhm.
Vincent O'Neill and Kyle wrote the script, but Borchers is the one that kind of came up with the basic premise, the Santa Claus one, and then he got a job producing a New World and brought this with him, and because they would
Oh,
make it, because he more or less had it kind of put together, and he's the one that got Vincent O'Neill involved in all this other stuff, and so. That's how it all comes together. But what I'm finding neat is that Molly is completely isolated from all these people at school that she should be friends with, right? And she
Hmm.
has that lame story that says because she's got all these other friends at night, like her street family. You got the Asian cowboy, who I'm gonna talk about in a minute. You got Yo-Yo Charlie, who I knew I had seen in things, but could not tell you what any of them are. Um, you got the drag performer May, played by Dick Shawn, who's just an incredible performer. And then you've got just the two fellow prostitutes, and then you've got the like wild Solly, played by Susan Tyrrell, who we talked about in Crybaby, and I swear the makeup she's doing here is just the same model as what she wore there.
I think that just might be I think that just might be her signature look.
Yeah, but she's got like glasses and one's hanging by a rubber band over her ear the whole time. Like her whole wardrobe is a thing, man.
Yeah, and she's got like drawn on eyebrows that don't match her actual eyebrows, but you can see her actual eyebrows.
Yes, yeah. It's like Annie Lennox cosplay, but for somebody who's an eccentric painter, and not a good one either.
Now, I don't know. I might dispute that it's Annie Lennox. I might say that she's going for Wendy O. Williams.
Okay, that's fair too. Yeah, that would work
All
too.
she needs is like a chainsaw.
Yeah, that's true. That would work.
But let's not pretend that Susan Tyrrell hasn't been nominated for like Academy Awards.
Oh no, so you're a great actor. So it was working up until not that long ago, actually. So she's done a ton of stuff. In fact, I confuse her with other people. I mean, she died in the 2010s, but she worked right up until the end of her life and was in a ton of stuff. And I used to think she was the queen in Conan the Destroyer. She's not, but those two people resemble each other quite a bit. Um,
Now, who was the Conan Destroyer of the Queen? Was that was another one of those Andy Warhol types, right?
I think we're talking about Sarah Douglas, who's that they have kind of the same face. She was in Superman too. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah,
and
she's
yeah,
the girl
Kryptonian,
Kryptonian. Yeah, yeah,
in leather gear. So which is you can see how I confuse these people. They look similar the same.
yeah, and you could definitely throw like all the other Corman or not Corman, all the other Andy Warhol friends in there, like Mink Stole.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
Susan Tyrrell and Mink Stole have a very similar face thing going on too.
yeah. But I love that the Molly character has all of these other people who she's I mean, the energy and the mental energy this girl has is amazing for somebody who's 15. Now, Donna Wilkes is 24 when she's playing this, but she looks 15. She doesn't look, she's small and all this stuff. She doesn't look that old. And I love that she's just sort of created this whole family for herself out of really just the ragtag people of life that she's associated with now, because as we'll find out throughout the movie, the rest of her family is gone. The
Hmm.
the one though that I knew I had seen years later, I saw Rory Calhoun in a movie called Pure Country, George Strait's one
Oh
and only
yeah,
movie,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
And I'm watching this movie in the theaters with my whole family, and I'm sitting there going, I know this old guy from somewhere. I'm like, I know I've seen him in something. I'm sitting there the whole time going, who is this guy? Who's the guy? And he does one thing in that movie, and I can't remember exactly what the scene is, but he says something to George Strait, and the way he kind of saunters off, because he plays this old cowboy in that movie too. I was like, that's the guy from Angel. To which
Oh wow.
and I was like, yes. And this was before IMDb existed or any of that stuff. But I had this huge book of movies that had been reviewed from like 1933 to 1989. So I went home,
Are you
spun
talking
through.
about the Psychotronic Film Guide,
No,
Jay?
no, no. It was something I think like Leonard Maltin put together, but it had a bunch of other reviewers in it too. It's just
Oh yeah, yeah,
big.
yeah.
My parents got it for me when I was in the hospital as a kid, and I probably read that thing backward and forward, which is why probably I do a movie podcast now, among everything else. But I went and looked through that, and I was like, I knew it because I made a point to like who played Ernest, and I you know jotted his name down on a napkin or something. I got home, pulled that book out, read it. And I was like, aha! I knew him from somewhere. So I knew that guy, and he was the one that I kind of always remembered next to the killer, who we'll get to in a bit, because John Deal's been in. You talk about being the guy, that guy. He's been in everything for
Are
years.
are
But
you talking about the Leonard Maltin's movie guide?
It might have been that, yeah.
Because that
So
that has more than just him in it. But it's a big like compendium of
yes,
okay.
yes, it was just a. I think the book has been lost to time now and moves and things like that, but I held on to it for years, all the way through college. I had that thing, but because it was, it's really where I learned a lot about film and stuff like that. Honestly, was reading those little reviews and stuff like that. So, and it really turned me on to a lot of different stuff. But point being, is I knew I had seen him and things too, and I always thought it was so neat that she had this kind of rogues gallery of people around her, you know, who.
Hmm.
And what I think is so neat about it is all of them are like a different level of outsider, but they just play it as if they're just people, right? Like this whole wild assortment of folks, none of them ever comment on each other's like station in life, right? And it's just sort of neat to see that because nowadays the movie would like if they made this movie, they would go out of their way to like make the point about it. And I love the fact that they just don't. Like everybody is just who they are and you just kind of go with it.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see this like because you don't think like an old Western stuntman cowboy type would be friends with May, the drag performer, but
No,
he
not at all.
realizes they're both in like theater. They're both just doing performances.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got the yo-yo Charlie guy who's the young guy who kind of crushes a little bit on Molly, you can tell, but has no confidence at all. He looked like an extra out of New Year's Evil, by the way. And
He really did. And this movie and New Year's Evil would be great in some sort of grimy LA double feature
they kind of would, because I feel
because
like
it's both like
they
the
both
scummiest parts of Los Angeles,
well,
right?
yeah, I mean this is Hollywood Boulevard, and like they shot it on Hollywood Boulevard, and I wonder
You
if they
could,
had permits.
oh, it's LA. You can get permits just by asking, I'm pretty sure. It's
Well,
not, if it was New York, I would say no.
okay, that's fair.
But
That's a
since
good
it's
point.
LA, I'm going to say yes. And
That's a
because they had Rory Calhoun, he probably just had to write a few autographs to the right people and they were able to get the movie made.
This is true. If you don't know, like he was like this heartthrob of the 50s and 60s and all the way up to the 70s, really. And then, kind of did these bit parts.
Yeah, he's legit. And speaking of legit, you know who did this soundtrack that we're going to talk about inevitably?
I think Craig Safin.
Yeah, it's Craig Zafin,
Hmm.
famously from The Last Starfighter. He did the soundtrack for the criminally underrated Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins.
Oh, I have a fun aside about that in a moment. Yes. So,
Well, why don't we just stay tuned that one because I feel like we
yeah,
should do that one.
I think that feels like a film strip feature for sure. Yeah, because Fred Williams, the whole nine.
Yeah, and if you
Uh,
want to check one that's in the archives,
mhm.
Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream
Well,
Master.
I think the thing people know he did the music to this TV series Cheers. That's probably what
Oh
pays the
yeah.
mortgage and stuff for this dude.
I mean, that probably still pays his mortgage. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, really, I mean, and that's a kill. That's a great pub tune and everything. But the director even and the producer talk about like he did the score in a week and they were blown away how good it was. It's that they both have said way better than this movie deserved. but it also
100%.
but it also adds to the melodrama of the movie. It's why I say like it's very early Lifetime or Lifetime based a lot of its early stuff off the motifs here in this movie.
Yeah, because it's a very manipulative score.
Hmm.
And I said that with all positivity, right?
Yes, the point, right? Is it's trying to pull at your heartstrings because it's these sort of sweeping piano, like melancholy tunes. Because you're supposed to feel bad for Molly. I mean, because how does this girl become a hooker? She doesn't. I mean, we never see her have sex. The one time she's with a guy, great character actor Peter Jason, by the way, who's been in a lot of stuff. He's such a jerk. She's just like, nah, not happening. You realize like she has a lot of like agency to her and stuff. You feel bad for her, and you realize that this teacher really wants to, you know, help her and take care of her, but Molly's just not going to let her in on the secret.
Yeah, and I mean, I could understand that because when she lays it out later in the movie, she's like, I don't want to have him take all my stuff and put me in a foster care.
Hmm.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense because like I don't know if you know anybody that's ever had any experience in the foster care system.
Yeah.
It is not great.
No, it's not. And the ones that I know that came out of it and ended up with families and stuff, we're so incredibly thankful for that because it's not a good thing to be in the system. And so and I don't think that's ever been shown. light. And what I love is how that teacher takes so much ownership over you when she has that great thing with Solly later on, and she just becomes this sort of tough bitch all of a sudden. It's not what you expect, right? But she's very much like in this. I don't know. Like I felt like the teacher was, um, I
Miss
don't know.
Allen.
Yeah, I felt like she was channeling like this Mary Tyler Moore thing, like she's very like staunch and grew up and had been a part of the movement and stuff like that.
It's funny that you mentioned that because she was on the Mary Tyler Moore show spinoff Barney Miller,
I can see why she looks like
and,
her.
and
So
she was on like every show in the '80s.
yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
I know that face. Yeah, I mean Elaine Giftis is the actress's name, and
yeah,
um was in
um,
all kinds of stuff. But I don't know. All those elements peeling together. Like you look at this and you go like, man, for this low rent movie, that they made for, depending on who you ask, 1.2 to $3 million. uh, they get a lot out of it. They get a lot of mileage for it. And I didn't mention it before because box office is not everything. This movie made $20 million. I mean, that's insane for a Roger
yeah,
Corman flick.
that was a huge, huge success. Especially if they say they spent 1.3 to $3 million on Wikipedia, they spent under $3 million.
Yeah, yeah, they probably spent on the low end of that, but still, that I mean, you think when all this funded, at the time, like this is responsible for a lot of New World.
And I mean, even the sequel, Avenging Angel, it was made for $1 million and it made five, so
Yeah.
it turned a profit. Like that's what Roger Corman's great at. He's great at getting that early profit and making it last.
Well, I mean, Jason Blum took a lot of those notes out of that. James Cameron, before he became this mega, billion-dollar, filmmaker and stuff, he made movies like this. The Terminator was made on the cheap,
Yep.
and so was Aliens, for that matter. And what he got out of them is amazing, and that's the mark of a good Corman flick is that they don't have a lot of stuff. Well, and I think that's a mark of this era of filmmaker too, is that necessity breeds invention. You don't have all the
Hmm.
money in the world, so you got to figure out how to make this stuff work with just what you have. So there's not a ton of costumes. I mean, Donald Wilkes gets the most costumes of anybody. I think the cop wears the same tie at every scene, and stuff.
Yeah, it's the same tide. I think it's the same coat.
Yeah, exactly. So, but and then everybody else is in their getup. Like Susan Tyrrell changes her stuff up every now and then, but only slightly. And
Yeah,
but
and like her things are like used T-shirts and stuff that doesn't cost any money.
yeah, exactly. You
I mean,
could
I feel like
thrift it.
Angel and May had the two biggest costume budgets in
Yeah,
this movie.
yeah. May has all like how would you describe the May like performer and stuff? It's kind of like a Marilyn Monroe evening gown situation going on.
Yeah, May is dressed as the classiest 1950s lady.
Hmm.
50s, early 60s. Almost like Jackie Kennedy.
There you go. That's what I was looking
That's my
for.
big take is Jackie Kennedy because she wears a lot of pillbox hats. She's
Yeah,
got like some gauzy veils and stuff.
got the feather
She
boa.
feather boa, yeah, it's like a 1962 era glamour girl.
Yeah. And Dick Shawn, character actor from the 50s and 60s, really was part of like a lot of counterculture stuff in the 60s and stuff like that. And is just a ham. Like I feel like in 30 years before would have been like in a Marx Brothers movie as just an aside. Like he's just that kind of performer. He's just got such good comedy. He's got a ton of energy. And I loved him. I thought he was just incredible in this. And I forgot how fun he was in this movie.
He's a blast in this movie. He was one of those dudes that did the Club roasts all the time,
Okay. Okay.
which makes a lot of sense because that comes across in this performance.
Yeah.
He's most famous to me for playing LSD in The Producers, the guy who was the role of Hitler in
Yep. That
in
works.
Springtime for Hitler.
That checks out though. I mean, you can see it. Yeah, he's definitely he's got a stage background, you can tell. And I don't know, I thought he was a ton of fun. Next to Rory Calhoun, who just is just chewing up scenery as the cowboy, and talking all this cowboy stuff, and he's got the guns. He's the one that teaches Angel to shoot because she gets this little pea shooter, that she buys from a guy at a KFC, and stuff. And before she ends up stealing the hand cannon that Solly has.
Yeah, they introduce Angel's gun, but you never see it come into play. except for when she later in the movie she's picked up by some schoolmates
Hmm.
and threatened with gang rape. And so she pulls the piece out of her purse and like blows a hole through the windshield and
Hmm.
makes the jock guy wet himself. And he's kind of mean to her.
Exactly.
He's mean to her even before he realizes she's a prostitute because she won't go out with him.
Yeah, exactly. Because she like totally turns him down, at school or whatever. And that guy, we talk about like I don't know if William Zabka had seen this movie or not, but it feels like he based his entire career off that guy. So I mean, he is that 80s douche.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that starts to bring about the end of Angel's like happy street family kind of world, right?
Hmm.
Is that her secret gets out, and not just with the teachers, with the kids, and of course, kids are going to be terrible.
Exactly, because kids are awful.
Yeah,
And that's the whole point is she was trying to keep that a secret so that it wouldn't get out till she could just get done with school and then figure it out, from there. That was her whole plan. Because back in the 80s, kids, if you had a high school diploma, you could actually go places. So in life now that won't even get you a cup of coffee.
yeah.
But
Now you got to have a master's degree to
yeah.
get a high school diploma job.
Yeah, yeah. So, but in this time, that was a mark of like, hey, now I can go do whatever it is I want to do. I can be an adult at that point. You're stamped legal, whatever. And it'd be interesting to think if she could have kept the ruse up and avoided the killer that we'll get to in a minute, what that would have been like. Where her next move was. Um, but we'll
Uh,
never know. So
Obviously, her next move is going to, I don't know, New York or Chicago and turning tricks in a different town, question mark, while she's
could
going to college.
could be, but
Like
she's.
if she is, I hate to use the word good enough,
Mhm.
if she's dedicated enough to her job to be able to pay for an apartment rent and
Mhm.
private school tuition in Los Angeles, she's gonna make some real money if she goes to New York.
Right. Or, but she's from the Midwest. Like she talks about she's from Ohio. And I
Oh, so
always
she moves to Chicago like everyone.
yeah, I'm like Chicago makes sense. Like this girl's probably going back to Chicago and who knows, maybe she bumps into Ferris Bueller on a day off, somewhere along the way. So but that won't happen because I'll save it for when you watch Avenging Angel, you'll see where she winds up and what happens to her and stuff like that. But in this case, everything is moved forward by this necrophiliac question mark serial killer.
No, it's heavily implied
It
that
is okay. So I couldn't tell if he was
yeah.
like seancing the girl or what. But John Deal,
Oh no, that's
yeah.
that is not a seance.
Okay, we got to talk about this guy though, man. Because this dude like has been in literally 1,000 things.
Hmm.
You've seen him in everything from like Vacation. I'm talking about the original one to Kickboxer 2. He was in Falling Down, which is one of my favorite movies. He's doing stuff from all the way up through the 90s. He's in A Time to Kill. For if you want to know who he is the embedded FBI agent in the Klan that saved Sandra Bullock when she's hung up on the tree. Um, he was in Con Air, Fire Down Below, Pearl Harbor. He was in Jurassic Park 3. This guy's been in stuff forever, and even in a movie that's coming out in 2025. So he's still working to this day and was on a lot of TV. He did LA Law. He, did ER, Nashbridge. He did the whole nine of all those things. So this guy has been in a ton of stuff, but he is such a wild presence in this movie because we never really know anything about this guy. We don't even get a name. We just see him doing these workouts in like the same crummy apartment that the Terminator or the Kurgan in Highlander, lace out in, and he's
He's
eating eggs with a switchblade.
he's doing Patrick Bateman workouts
Yes,
because
yes.
he's like tied his legs to a board and he's
Mhm.
doing like incline sit-ups.
He's got the washboard abs. He's sweaty all the time, but he
Yeah.
wears a suit when he goes out. So you're
Hmm.
like, where's this guy get? I mean, he's got to have money somewhere. So I liked when you dropped the Patrick Bateman thing. I'm like, this guy is a stockbroker or something that just went off the edge, you
Or
know?
he's like a some sort of like a person working in like Hollywood. Like he's an
Mhm.
executive.
Yeah.
He's like a junior executive at like Paramount or something.
Or he's the son of an executive of Paramount and he's like gone
Yeah.
off the rails. He's a
He's
trust
yeah,
fund
he's the
kid.
son of like the president, the vice president of acquisitions at Sony.
Yeah, exactly. Like his dad worked on location scouting for The Godfather or some nonsense, and that's he's made his living. But you don't know anything else about him again, other than the way he operates and stuff. I mean, he is so creepy, man. I mean, when he's on the screen, it becomes a horror movie.
Yeah, he's really super unsettling.
Hmm.
It's a really weird presence, and they go out of their way to make him look like specifically upsetting.
Hmm. But I talked about it, I've teased it. The way he cuts that egg open and just eats it, and just like it's a raw egg, and he just crushes the whole thing in his face. It's the nastiest thing I've ever seen. It's the nastiest thing in this nasty movie.
He uses a switchblade to cut an egg open. Then he sucks the juices out of the egg, and then he like mashes the shell into his mouth?
Yeah,
Question mark.
yeah. I
Like
mean, and
I
that's not a stunt egg. Like he didn't
no,
do
that's a
that.
shoot egg. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a legit egg. He's like disgustingly chowing down on. Now, what's funny is when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old, one of
Hmm.
my older cousins who was big into fitness and still is in very good shape. Um, he was making one of those Rocky drinks.
Oh, the eggs, and you just drink them down. Yeah.
Yeah, and he like cracked two eggs and he put some protein powder or something in there and some shark cartilage and like stirred it all up and added some Gatorade or something and then just like drank the whole thing. And it was the most disgusting sight I've ever seen in my life. He's like, it's not that bad. You want one? I was like, no, I'll just be fat forever.
I'm gonna tell you, consuming raw eggs is never a good idea. Like whoever thought that up, like they'll tell you now, like don't friggin' do it. It's in a lot of the protein stuff that you have now. It's been made with it and things like that, or and they you do it synthetically most of the time now. But yeah, that would have I would have never gone for fitness at all if that was an actual requirement because I knew people that did that stuff too, and I was nah, not gonna happen. But it's
My
this
my
was.
daughter,
Mhm.
Jay, before we move on, my daughter when she was a child, when she was like 2, 3, 4 years old, loved eggs.
Yeah.
So I would have to fry her eggs.
Oh, I love eggs.
And it's the most disgusting thing I've ever had to. It's one of the most disgusting things I've ever had to do in my life because I cannot stand the smell of cooking eggs.
Okay.
I cannot stand the texture of egg
Oh man.
flesh or whatever you want to call it when it's cooked. It's just, I don't really eat eggs.
Hmm.
I definitely don't eat eggs by themselves. I'll eat them if they're like in fried rice or something, but like eggs Benedict, I would rather be shot.
See, I love eggs, but my wife is like you. She cannot do the smell of them, so I can't cook them anymore. Years have gone by. I only have them when she's going to be out of town for extended periods of time, now, or if I'm out somewhere, I can do that, or whatever. But yeah, she can't do them either. But I love them. It incredible source of protein for me, but not raw and with a switchblade by any means.
I I would I would wonder, Jay, was your wife around people who got their hair permed?
Possibly, but this
Because
developed
that's what
after we were married. So
well, that's what did it for me.
yeah.
Is like now I when I was a younger, much younger, my grandmother would get her hair permed,
Hmm.
and the permanent solution smells like rotten eggs.
It does, yes.
And I never really I was never a big eggs person to begin with anyway, but that just cemented it in my brain that I will never eat eggs.
That might have been it because for a while she had a big perm in her hair and stuff. So maybe that's what started it. I don't remember exactly. I will have to reinvestigate, but I just know it's been over a decade since we were like eggs were a part of our routine here at all. So maybe even longer than that now that I think about it.
So did she used to eat them and turned against them?
But yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when we first married, like I would make that for breakfast and stuff, and she liked them, but it just something changed, and it's like your taste buds change every 6 years or whatever, and so I guess hers turned, and they never came back to eggs. So, but
Mm.
but even the smell of it, everything just bugs her about them now. But um, welcome back to Egg Talk here on Film Strip.
Welcome to egg strip. Well, no, welcome to bacon strip.
Yeah, well, that would be
Our new
better.
breakfast side podcast.
Yes, we're talking about all things pancake.
And what's funny
Uh,
is we got super derailed on the eggs topic, but that is such a gross image.
it is. It's
And like even
yeah,
more than the part where he's like fondling a dead prostitute, that makes
yes,
him establishes him as like, oh, he's real creep. He's not
yeah.
just like semi creep. He's not just like standard, you know, Ted Bundy type creep. He's like uh Rick James would call him a super creep.
I mean, yeah, they went out of their way to make this guy just off the rails nuts. All the way down to like when he's in the lineup and she finally realizes it's him because he gets in the right light or whatever. And the
Mm-hmm.
way he like, man, he Terminator shoots his way out of the police force, man, with a gun that he's never actually pulling the trigger on, by the way. But he like kills like six cops. And then he runs out, and I'm like, look, I know it's LA and not New York, but if you kill a cop, it's over. Like the whole city would have descended on this guy.
I mean, I feel like in LA they would have been even harsher
Right.
because this
Yeah.
is this is 80s LA. This is back when they were still like raiding Black Flag shows and beating the shit out of Henry Rollins with truncheons for looking at him wrong.
Right. Right. These are not your friendly neighborhood officer here. And he kills like four of them at one time. Now I love his disguise is to go and like shave his head. And John Deal shaves his head in this movie because he ain't got no makeup effects, for anything, because the blood in this movie's just barely Karo syrup and stuff there, and they're saving it all for the end. The way he shaves his head down, and he kind of gives himself a mohawk at first, like the reverse mohawk.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing the other Road Warrior
Yeah,
Hawk.
the
Yeah,
Hawk, Road Warrior Hawk.
yeah, he's doing that, and then he goes full Hare Krishna, or like Hare Krishna as imagined by the Airplane movie. And the joke that was right.
Yeah. And it's really funny because like if you just showed up with a shaved head, I don't think the Hare Krishna are going to be like, yeah, you can chant and dance around with us.
Yeah, I think there's a few more steps. Yeah,
I feel like there's got to be like more of a hoop you got to jump through.
yeah, you'd think. Yeah. But yeah, he is off the rails, and when he ultimately settles in on Angel because obviously she knows him. And I'll tell you what I related that to was the movie When a Stranger Calls, which is a very uneven movie, but the first act of which is just horror brilliance, and the second act becomes this really bad TV movie about how shitty mental health care is in this country, even in the late 70s, early 80s, and you start to feel bad for the killer too. You realize he killed children with his hands, which is a bad move by the movie. But he comes across a random newspaper where he sees that the babysitter that turned him in years before is married to some executive and is like some sort of it's Carol Kane is doing some sort of philanthropy work, and that sets him off to go and chase her again. And I felt like
Mm.
this was doing some of the same stuff. But at least it had more of a reason here. That seems incredibly random in When a Stranger Calls. And in this one, not so much. You can go back and listen to that in the archives. This is one Anna and I did moons ago, but we talked about that. It was how like the machinations to get him back to her. And Fred Decker would say years later, like, yeah, that was the hard part of how do I take these 20 minutes and turn it into 90? I don't know. And they just kept straight. If I didn't have Charles Durning to lean on for half the movie, it wouldn't have been anything. And he's not wrong. But yeah, I love that he fixates on her and the way that he's going to take her out, Hari Krishna or not.
Interestingly enough, the energy that our killer friend has,
Mhm.
the actor John Deal, the energy he reminds me of a lot. Andrew Robinson, the
Oh,
Scorpio killer from Dirty Harry,
yeah, and
and also
Frank from
Larry from
Hellraiser.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, Frank
But
and
he's
Larry.
got
Yeah,
big Scorpio killer energy.
yeah, and
It's very
also
interesting.
Monty from Cobra. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, who was supposed to be part of the gang, by the way, in the original 4 hour cut of that movie that somewhere exists on Stallone's hard drive. But
Would Stallone have it or is that just been disappeared
I
forever?
mean, yeah, who else would have it at this point? I'm sure it would have reverted to him at some point because he was the driving force behind the thing.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So I
Yeah, but it's really an interesting,
yeah.
interesting energy type.
Yeah, because he's not the biggest dude. I mean, he's in shape, but he's not a big dude. He's not imposing. He's not Clancy Brown or something like that, you know. And he's not
Yeah, he's not the kind of guy you would look at and be like, I'm afraid of this guy.
no, but he's also incredibly unnerving. Because again, he just looks like just this dude that doesn't know how to handle social situation at all, which is
Hmm.
juxtaposed to Yo-Yo Charlie, who also is kind of awkward, but is in sort of a sweet way. You know,
Yeah,
this
there's
guy's
Yo-Yo Charlie, who's awkward and sweet, and there's the Napoleon Dynamite looking kid from the high school who
yes,
asks Molly out and
yeah,
then comes back later once the news is leaked that Molly's a prostitute and
and
says, I
offers her
have $23
money.
saved up. Like,
Oh,
man, come on.
oh yeah, Ronald Miller is what I call him, proto Ronald Miller from Can't Buy Me Love. But yeah, there's that, and then there's this guy, which is again on the other end of the scale. Um,
Yeah, there's like, oh, he's sweet, kind of awkward, and there's like,
I,
oh, he's troublesome, kind of awkward. And he's
you,
definitely weird energy the whole time. Like just looking at him is unsettling.
you know, you said it in the opening there that he's very much. This feels very much like it could live in the Dirty Harry universe, and I said sudden impact.
Mhm.
He's got Mick energy from sudden impact. That creepy dude.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good pull.
very much that kind of thing, which just means you root for him to be shot, at some point, and he'll get that. But before that, we got to talk about like Angel's unlikely source of support, the cop and the teacher. Now, the teacher we get because that's established or whatever. This cop takes like a serious like interest in this girl beyond anybody else. Like I think he doesn't buy her story. He knows something's up. And that will play out because that's a character that gets to hang around in the sequel, because he'll become an important part of her life.
Yeah, and they you can pretty much guess where the sequel's going to go or what's going to happen in the sequel because they really heavily lay the groundwork here that he's got a bond with Angel.
Hmm.
He wants what's best for her. He's willing to do what's best for her. He's willing to overlook that, she's a sex worker because he realizes she's got no other choice, but he also really wants to get her off the street. There's actually a really nice scene with him and Angel in the car. We're saying, hey, look, you know, you're doing the job now, but what are you going to do in 5 years or 10 years when the lines start to show up on your face and you'll just be in and out of jail like all these other girls?
Hmm.
And you're smarter than that. You're a straight A student. You should want better than that for yourself.
Yeah, I mean he's laying it out for her because he knows eventually you're gonna get on the drug. It's gonna go. It's one thing to the next to the next because he's seen it, right? He's the grizzled detective at this point. He's a lieutenant for goodness sakes, and so he's seen all of this stuff. And she looks at him as just another avatar for the dad that she wishes would come back, but she knows deep down is never coming back. And then the mom that said sorry and gave her $100 and moved to Cleveland, in the middle of the
Which
night.
was a lot of money in 1981, but
Yeah, I mean, it
or
got her to
1980.
California, but that was what it got her. It got her on a Greyhound bus, so that was it. So and then she had to figure it out from there. So I, I mean, I get why she's so guarded about it and stuff. I just think it's neat that she's got these two people. She's got all these people that are trying to sort of that are in her world now that we know it's not good for her, but they are better for her than the two other like real world adults who will don't get her. That's what's so wild about this story is that the cross-dressing performer, the wild apartment owner, and the cowboy are better friends to her than the teacher and the cop.
And they really all try their best to make her story hang together
Yeah.
when confronted by outsiders.
Uh-huh.
Like May 100% knows better.
Oh, they all know. Yeah, they
Solly
know.
100% knows better.
Yeah.
But
Cat
they
knows.
go along with it because she's such a nice kid.
Yeah. And there's a camaraderie you get. I mean, I look at it like this, that in some ways you've got the suits, on the outside wanting you to be a part of the world. And then you got like the vaudeville performers that are the carnival people that are like, no, just stay with us, just be on the outside. And you got a little bit of that going on. Because we're talking about the early 80s. We've talked about this on several podcasts. That like what we think of as the 80s culture really started in like early 1985, or late
Mhm.
84. This was the remnants of the 70s still. So, and which was the coming out of the 60s and all the things going on. And at this point, man, yeah, breaking away from the man was part of culture as well. So don't go with the squares, stay with us is part of what I was reading here.
Yeah, and I feel like, and this is the thing we've talked about in pretty much any, especially our Friday the 13th series. We talked a lot about when did the 80s end.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to see this kind of like misfit family come together,
Hmm.
and how they don't necessarily exclude the cops. They don't welcome the cops either, but they're not like, we just won't talk to the guy. But the Lieutenant Andrews makes a real point to say, hey, look, I don't care that you're turning tricks and doing con games and stuff on the street. I just don't want anyone else to be found dead.
Hmm.
And it's an interesting kind of connection that he has with the street performers and even like the beat cops. We're like, yeah, we just say, hey, go down the street, don't let us catch you again, and let you go, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an understanding, I guess.
Well, it's like the idea of like victimless crime, like it's a vice, like there was a time when they'd spent a lot of rage and money on that, but what was else was happening in the 80s? A lot of drugs, a lot of gangs, a lot of other stuff going on. So maybe we let some of this other stuff slide because we don't have enough people to do it. And also we're too busy beating the shit out of Henry Rollins, on the weekends. So we ain't got time to deal with the hookers anymore. I mean, I think that's part of it. What I love is where we get to the inciting incident because I mean she knows she's being chased, she knows this guy's out there or whatever. It's when the guy shows up at the house after May's tried to fool Mrs. Allen by being the mom or whatever. That the killer shows up and May gets in a fight with the killer, and I had forgotten that May gets killed. And the way May died, oh man, it just breaks your heart. She's like, oh, the one person you don't want to die because they go out like on a but on line, with Solly. But it's when Molly gets home that she sees all the wreckage and she realizes, okay, that's what sets me off. But it bothered me that May had to die.
Yeah, I'm not generally the kind of person who gets bummed out when people die in movies,
Hmm.
but that was definitely like a really bummer of a moment because that was such a fun character and had such good rapport with Molly and Kit and had good rapport even with Mrs. Allen, the teacher. Like
Yeah,
May was the weirdest, like positive parent figure in Angel's life.
yeah, it really May was, and that's
And to see
what's
that taken away is like really
well. I think
sad.
I think it explains why Angel does what she does. Because when May's gone, she's like, "All right, fine." She goes and steals Solly's huge gun, the big 44 Magnum, Dirty Harry, which is like watching. I do love that they had a decent reaction when Donna Wilkes shoots that thing and her arms go flying over her head. I'm like, yeah, she probably would have been knocked down by that too, because she's about 80 pounds soaking wet, at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way but at least she's not like hip firing it. She's got both hands on it. She probably took all of it she could to raise the damn thing up. But she goes to the street. She's
I mean,
gonna
it
go and
looks
find this
like
guy.
it looks like to me it's one of those Ruger Blackhawks.
Hmm.
So it's not firing like a huge cartridge. It's like 45 APC, but it's also an incredibly heavy gun.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's
I
the
don't I don't know
delivery
if have you ever
system.
shot one?
Hmm.
Yeah, so and it might be one of the ones that's actually chambered in like the 44 Magnum, which in which case it would have knocked her like through the nearest wall.
I say it looked very close to the Smith and Wesson. I know it wasn't, but it was on the same kind of framework. The point being is she's got this huge gun and she's just rolling through Hollywood Boulevard and nobody's gonna stop her. right? Because they know. But she's this guy's hiding out with the Hare Krishnas, and Charlie tips her off that he's following her because he's about to stab her from behind, right? And then that's when they get in their fight. I love that he jumps in the back of some dude's El Camino who just stops on the boulevard and throws him out of it. You still
Yeah,
there?
he grabs the guy stops, just shit cans him out of the back
Yeah,
in one of the funniest scenes of the movie, where he just literally grabs him and throws him like a big bag of garbage.
it's like, get out of
So
my damn
funny.
truck. I mean, it's hilarious. He throws him out of that thing, and then of course she fires off a couple rounds. Can't get anywhere. At that point, he stabbed Kit too, by the way. So I'm like, man, we're killing off all the good characters. That pissed me off. I'm glad Kit didn't die because we get a scene of him riding on the back of some Indian's Harley later. So presumably coming to the rescue because he was supposed to die in the original script and in the original shot, and the test audience hated that. So they ended up redoing it with him surviving and coming back and saving the day. They also didn't like that when, in the end, Angel guns down the guy in the original shot, and they're like, no, they don't want her to do that. They don't want her to go to that dark. They want somebody else to take care of it for her. And I kind of agree with that. I don't know how I would have felt about her, like as a 15-year-old just shooting somebody, even though it's justified.
I mean, she's traumatized enough, right?
Hmm.
Um, she doesn't need like extra trauma, but man, what an ending that would have been if she had been the one to do it, like
Right.
to just put him down for good.
Well,
Crazy.
all I can say is get ready for Avenging Angel because as the title implies, she's grown up and ready to go full Chuck Norris on some people. Um, Invasion U.S. Angel is another way you can think of that movie.
Hey, you know what? As long as the inciting incident is bad enough to merit the murder spree, I'm okay with it.
Oh, it is. I'm just going to leave you at that, and we'll get to that another day on the show here. But beforehand, we come to this one, and the cop, he gets the gun away and shoots the cop, but Um, out of nowhere, here comes the cowboy to save the day. And like you say, he pumps about 18 shots into this dude. And that's not the part that got me because I had forgotten, but I always remembered that Rory Calhoun, Kit Carson, shot the guy. It's that they give the killer this, like, he doesn't have any lines in the movie until the very end, where he gets to lean on the wall with this sad music playing, talking about how much it hurts to die and then die.
Yeah. Which
What?
is really funny because that's the only thing we ever hear him say
Yeah.
is that it hurts.
Yeah. And I'm
And
like,
I wonder if that's just some sort of does he have a realization there that what he's done to other people?
I don't know.
Or
Like I was gonna ask you, what was the purpose of that? Because I'd have been fine if they just shot him and left him laying in the street, because he was worth that. I did not get why we needed to be sentimental about the killer at the end.
I feel like that it had to be some sort of like final moment realization that, oh, prostitutes are people. I wasn't just, stabbing a garbage can with a knife. I'm stabbing an actual person, and this hurts, and it kind of sucks to die. So maybe like a last second awareness of the evils that he had wrought, or maybe just he's just completely self-centered and realized it hurts that, and he was saying that it hurts not because he had been shot, but because it hurts to know that prostitutes will continue to live and he won't be able to stab them.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. It's very, it's just very weird, you know.
It was a really interesting, kind of an odd choice.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. So it's not what you expect from the end of this, and then they walk off to the sad music into the dark of L.A. To be in a sequel, as we know, and one more afterwards. But we're at the part of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings for this movie. So, what are yours, Ron, for Angel?
You know what? I don't, despite not having a ton of background with this movie, and despite the movie's general subject matter, I really had a good time with it. I really like the character of May. May
Mhm.
is a fabulous character and a great performance from Dick Shawn. Angel herself is kind of like in a cipher, but in an appealing way. Like she's not unlikable. She's very likable throughout the whole thing, and it kind of makes sense that she behaves the way she does. A lot of fun character actors in this. I'm a little surprised that Dick Miller wasn't in this too somehow, as potentially a John or a cop or something.
Yeah.
But I had a really good time with Angel, and I had a really good time talking about Angel with you. It's a very lean and mean kind of movie. It moves very quickly. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's nothing like, clever, but that's okay. It's fun. And it's a very fun slice of like early 80s dirtball cheese. And I'm going to go with a medium popcorn with extra butter.
Yeah, I'm going to join you in that medium popcorn because this is, as a premise, is totally small popcorn, and the setup of it, if it weren't for the people involved in it, and really the cast around Donna Wilkes, she's fine in it, but she's not asked to carry this movie. Everyone else really does, and particularly Dick Shawn, who does a lot of the work here, and Rory Calhoun. They're incredible in this, and you want good things for Angel in it. Like that's the thing. It's like at one point you're like, "Oh, girl, stop making bad choices." But you're like, "No, I get it. I understand." And then you want her to, maybe go and get revenge, but you also want to protect her quote innocence, what little of it's left at this point, right? And she has this whole scene at one point where she talks about, how many men she slept with, but she doesn't love any of them, and she doesn't even know what that is, and you just feel for her. And that takes the melodrama into a better place. So it makes it fun. And then it has a satisfying ending too. And it has one of the creepiest killers ever. I mean, we went on and on about it. I can't think we could do it justice. You really got to see it. So it's a piece of cheese for sure, but it's good midday medium popcorn all the way, and I dig it, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it here on the show finally. So we're right here at the end of September, Ron. It's almost time for our annual Shocktober, and we've got some fun things planned for folks. So stay tuned on that.
Before we get into the plugs for Shocktober, Jay, would you say that this is our back to school special?
This might be it. Yeah, I guess we kind of blew past that this year, but maybe stay in school special is what this is. As bad as it is, kids, it's better than the streets. So,
Hey, public school's fine, kids. You can just drop out of private school. It's okay.
exactly. Look, just take the test and move on, and learn good skills. Mostly how to network. That's the most important thing that high school will never teach you. But anyway, thanks for joining us on the PSA section of the show. We've had the cooking show and now the stay in school section. So we could be sponsored by Tubi and maybe the Ad Council. I don't know.
Tubi and Great Courses Plus, because if you want to learn things and not be a prostitute, look out for the Great Courses Plus.
I'm sure it's exactly the plug they were looking for. So, like I was saying,
Hey, for all we know, there's a Great Courses Plus about how to be the best prostitute you can be.
I wouldn't doubt if that was not something out there on Coursera, as we speak. I don't know that it's a LinkedIn learning module, but maybe, who knows? Anyway, we're getting ready to come around in our fun time, doing a lot of horror stuff. We're doing our grab bag episodes again. Can't wait to get on those. Lizzie's going to join us back on those because the play's just wrapped up. So congrats to her for getting to do that. We'll get the lowdown on that on the next show. But stay tuned here, folks. You can find and follow this show everywhere you find podcasts. Just look for Film Strip Podcast. And if you want to follow us on social media, it's at Film Strip Pod. We post announcements. We share stuff about upcoming shows. We share our friends' shows and stuff like that. So go ahead and subscribe. Leave us a review as well because it helps other people find the podcast and makes us feel really good about ourselves. So until next time, for Ron, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.